Hello, friends, and welcome back to Season 8 of the Silmarillion Film Project. I'm back after a one episode hiatus. I've set a new record for attendance, one in a row.
There you go. There you go. And 2 out of 3, which is,
Yeah,
just
I'm
fine.
I'm killing it, man. I'm killing it. But I'm here. And then, as usual, Corey Olson is here. Nick is here. Nick, you were here last time, but you weren't here for the first one I attended.
So you're both two out of
So,
three.
yeah, Marie is late, but she will be here. So we'll have the entire crew.
We will.
And that's great because we've got to get moving on season 8.
Yes. And Alana's here also. Alana is
Oh
in
yeah.
the comments. She's live on Twitch here with us too. Glad you're here,
Woohoo!
Alana, because we've got big things to talk about today. So first of all, apologies, despite the fact that, as Dave says, this is in fact session 3 of season 8. I still had the season 7 intro sequence because I've still not made the season 8 one, but I'm so close to making it. I've even decided which of Philip Menzies' season 7 compositions I'm going to use as the music. So I'm so almost there, but I haven't quite made it yet. So that will happen. That will certainly happen. But today we are excited to discuss big picture season 8. We've kind of touched on it in the last two sessions. The last two sessions we've been doing a sort of SilmFilm recap and overview to kind of help people to pick up on where we are and what we're going to be moving forward with. Today we're just going to be focused on season 8 moving forward and thinking about some of the big questions that we have to answer as far as what are we going to include? What are we not going to include? How are we going to shape season 8? As well, again, as some individual questions, which might not even themselves be central to season 8, but which we need to figure out sooner or later because we need to know to what extent we need to include them in season 8. In this, I don't mean to be mysterious about this category. I'm thinking about things like Gil-galad. What is Gil-galad's trajectory going to be from here? How do we get him from the junior ambassador to Doriath, where we've gotten him so far, through to, towards high kingship, right? As within the SilmFilm story, as we've been telling it, Gil-galad is not high on the list of prospective future high kings of the Noldor, right? In fact, he's got to be like, if you were to watch SilmFilm with no knowledge whatsoever of the published Silmarillion, Gil-galad would be a dark horse candidate for future High King, right? How do we get him to that point and hit the really quite few Silmarillion text points that were given about Gil-galad? So that's one question. The other is Galadriel. Where does Galadriel go from here? What is her long-term trajectory here? And also Sauron. Those three, Sauron, Galadriel, and Gil-galad, I think are three. None of them, I think, are going to be focal points of season 8. But I do want to make sure that we have some kind of direction of where we're going with those three very important longer term characters, so that we can make sure that we don't make any decisions for other things in season 8 that preclude options that we would want to leave open for them moving forward. Anyway, but season 8, that's what we're going to talk about today. Before we do, let me just do a few announcements because there are some important announcements. First of all, most importantly, we are still in the middle of our fall fundraising campaign for Signum University. I encourage you, if you have never donated to support Signum University, that you consider doing so. Signum University relies heavily upon the tax-deductible in America donations that we receive from all of our supporters and listeners and students. Our goal at Signum University is to share the joy that we have in learning and studying things with other people, and that means trying to maximize opportunities that other people have for fun, enriching, and profitable educational experiences. And that means, whether that means being able to listen for free to broadcasts like this, or whether it means being able to do things like getting our premium content, lecture things and videos and books and stuff through our collaboratory and store for small amounts of money, whether it means being able to take space classes or attend our tutorials. for, again, very affordable amounts of money, or whether it means getting to take our graduate courses, again, for a small fraction of what most schools are able to charge. We want to make these things available to everybody as much as we possibly can. And that's made possible by the donations that we receive. So many thanks to everybody who has made donations in the past to help make this all possible. And if you never have made a donation, I encourage you to consider making this year the year in which you start. signumuniversity.org/donate is the website for our web form for our donations. And if you have any questions about how to make a donation, or you would like to talk more about it, you can send an email to donate@signumu.org. In addition, specifically, our fall fundraising campaign concludes this weekend on Saturday, November 22nd, with our annual Signum University fundraising webathon. That begins at 9:30 a.m. with our space showcase. From 9:30 to noon, we're going to be doing a showcase of, we're going to be a series of mini space classes that are going to be really, really fun. I'm excited about those. At noon, I'm going to be giving my big State of the University address, talking about the future of Signum University. Big State of the University address this year. And then after that, we're going to be doing other fun sessions. We're going to have a session on Mythmoot immediately afterwards, where we have a big announcement to make. We are going to open registration for Mythmoot now, this Saturday. Not like in April or something, but in fact, this Saturday, we're going to open registration for Mythmoot in the live session after the State. That'll be at 2 o'clock. At 3 o'clock, we're going to talk about the graduate program. We're going to talk after that about the Signum Press and Signum Studios and our collaboratory. And then in the evening, starting at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, I'm going to do a little miniature course. We're going to do a little mini course. I'm going to do a mini course on Tom Bombadil. We're gonna start off reading the original Adventures of Tom Bombadil poem that Tolkien published in the Oxford Magazine. Then we're gonna go back and we're gonna read some passages from the Fellowship of the Ring, and then we're gonna go back and look at how he revised the Tom Bombadil poem in the 1960 Adventures of Tom Bombadil poetry volume, sort of the post Lord of the Rings Adventures of Tom Bombadil version, and maybe we'll look at Bombadil Goes Boating as well after that. So I'm going to do it's going to be a several hour little mini course on Tom Bombadil in Tolkien's imagination, starting at 5 p.m. on Saturday. So that is what is going on. And of course, we have all of our spring moots stretching out before us, beginning with Osmoot in January and going through Willamoot in May in Leuven, Belgium. So we begin and end with an international moot, and in between we have California and Florida and Texas and Colorado as well, all mixed in there. So lots of really fun things. And with that, and now Marie's here too. So welcome, Marie Prosser, also from our Writing's Room. And now we can officially start. So I was just kind of biding time, Marie, until you got here. So we're good now. We're good now, and we have our whole Writer's Room in place.
So sorry.
No, it's all good. It's all good. So let's talk about story. Let's start actually even before we get into the specific Story 8. Storylines, season 8 storylines rather. Can we talk about the big stuff that I was Marie, I was listing in my little opening. I want to think a little bit about Gil-galad, Galadriel, and Sauron, so that we have an idea of the general trajectory we want to put them on in the next few seasons, so that we can have that in mind. I just want to make sure we don't get so deep into discussing season 8 stuff that we accidentally either close off something for those 3 long-term characters, none of whom are going to be a focus in this season, but we might want to introduce. So to give one obvious example, is Galadriel, 2 obvious examples. Is Galadriel going to be in Doriath? If so, we need to integrate her into the Turin story, but we need to know that before we get there. Is Gil-galad going back to Nargothrond If so, we need to integrate him into the Turin story as well, right? But if not, if we're going to have other plans, and then also, like, again, what is Sauron doing, and are there going to be ways in which we're going to integrate him into the Turin story, or the Tuor story, or both? So those are those three long-term characters I think we need to resolve. Not like we don't have to write their whole story for the next 6 seasons, but if we can have a pretty good idea of where they're going to be and generally what they're going to be up to over the course of this next segment of Beleriand history, it'll help us when we're then coming through and considering some of these other more specific situations.
Sure.
Let's start with, Alana was starting with Galadriel, so let's follow Alana's lead and start with Galadriel. She was saying, I think Galadriel could be spending some time in Doriath needing to sort of deal with, she's certainly going to have some sense of failure. It wasn't her fault. Her recruiting of the Easterlings was a great idea and almost came off. And the way it went bad isn't really on her precisely, right? But certainly,
And yet,
right. This has been it was certainly a pretty major setback. So,
right. The Union of Maedhros being a failure of leadership on Maedhros' part makes perfect sense.
Yes.
Obviously. Galadriel didn't necessarily know that she was contributing to the failure of the Nirnaeth.
Yes, exactly. And so certainly having her coming to grips with that, which means, by the way, that I think Doriath is both the logical place for her to cope with the failure of the Union of Maedhros and her contribution to that, but it also is a really conspicuous place, right? As, of course, Thingol and his unwillingness to contribute at all also contributed to the failure of the Union. So it's going to be a conspicuous thing to be discussing within Doriath, right? Even if we're talking about mostly private conversations between Galadriel and Celeborn, we still, I mean, the fact that they're having these conversations under the roof of Thingol, who, wants nothing to do with it and is not sympathetic to the Union of Maedhros, I think is an interesting piece of context that we'd have to kind of address and bring in, and which I think we could integrate into the Beleg subplot, which leads directly into the Turin story, right? Because, of course, one of the things that obviously Beleg is going to be one of our very central characters for the whole Turin story, especially in season 8. And so thinking about involving Galadriel and Celeborn in the dynamics of Beleg's activity and his work with Turin, I think makes a certain amount of sense. I certainly think, because Celeborn is still in Doriath, and having Galadriel go back to touch base with her husband and original counselor anyway is the obvious and logical thing for her to do in the immediate aftermath of this. Would we want her to do anything else, or just like having her there in Doriath, does that seem like enough for now? Or
I think it makes sense as a starting point. Long term, we have to figure out where she's going after this.
Yeah.
Because the oh no, I failed and regroup thing, that could work for this season.
Yes.
But then what for her?
But then what?
Where does that trajectory end?
Yep.
Is something we have to think through.
Yeah. Agreed. I think the biggest question at some point, right? The inevitable future for Galadriel. At some point, she's going to cross the mountains permanently, and she's going to set up with Celeborn in like the greater Eregion region, right? And we don't have to have her wait until the Second Age to do that. So the time could come when we decide that moving across the mountains and setting up to the east of the mountains is the thing that she's going to go do. And I'm partly of a mind to say that's what Galadriel does instead of going to the havens of at the mouths of Sirion, basically. Everyone else is going down to Sirion, but Galadriel's like, no, actually, I'm going to go east. It's a little tempting to have her involved I kind of don't entirely love the idea of separating her completely from the stories that follow afterwards, but kind of getting her out of Earendel and Gil-galad's way a little bit seems like a good thing in some ways. Anyway,
so a lot of things are going to happen in Doriath after this season.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to get sacked a few times.
Mm-hmm.
And the decision of when Galadriel and Celeborn leave matters to those storylines.
Yes.
Because obviously they have to survive.
Yeah.
Most of the other characters who are in Doriath during those events do not survive.
Yeah.
But obviously somebody gets to the havens, so she could be leaving at the same time characters are leaving to go to the havens. That would be one method, and just she goes a different direction.
Yes.
It's a chaotic time period, so
yes. Yes, agreed. And how soon we send them off again? To me, that's the biggest question. I gotta eventually. We could decide to wait. We could decide to not send her into Eriador until after the War of Wrath. Like that's a viable possibility. We could keep her around in Beleriand through the entirety of the rest of the First Age if we chose to. But that's the decision. Like when eventually, that's certainly where she's headed, is Eriador. It's just a question of when we want to pull the trigger on that, when we think that makes most sense for that to happen. I don't know if I would say, responding to a YouTube comment here, I don't know if I would say that Galadriel has to be present when Elwing is born to Dior, but we might want that. We might want her being around. Again, they're both people, and they're both people and events that we might not want to distance Galadriel from too much. One of those, by the way, is Elrond, actually. Like I'm not we could decide that she and Elrond only meet in the Second Age, basically, and don't have that much to do with each other in the First Age. But anyway,
another thing we have to think about is when Galadriel and Celeborn decide to have a
children,
family, and have Celebrian be born, which should happen at least not too far into the Second Age.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I think sometime in the Second Age would be good.
Right. So, that's the other piece of the trajectory is, yes, she's going to Eriador. Yes, she's
when does she go to Eriador? When do they have kids?
She's going to have a realm of her own in that. The other question is if we're having her go a little too far off the deep end in the realm of her own story, like how far does that go to justify her speech to Frodo about why offering her the One Ring is a bad idea?
Right. Yeah.
She makes it sound like she could have done some crazy stuff.
Yes.
So how much of that do we want to include in her storyline, or how much of it is her looking back going, wow, I could have gone off the rails here, but luckily I did not.
Yeah, I don't think we necessarily need to show her going way far off the rails. It'd be a little bit, I could see Nick as wanting to shove Galadriel far off the rails, right? I don't absolutely hate the idea of Galadriel, but here's what I'm primarily thinking. I'm primarily thinking we need to make it make sense. We need to make her trajectory from here to there. So she sets up a realm of her own. She sets up Doriath 2.0, right? And I'm not talking about Lothlorien. I think Lothlorien is Doriath 3.0, basically. I think 2.0 is Eregion, right? Is like the realm, and when she's friends with the dwarves and everything else, right? And I think that if she goes wrong, that's when she needs to go wrong.
Sure.
And I think the Second Age is going to be the heart of her going as far wrong as she's going to go, however far that ends up being. Okay. But that means, where are the turning points? We've already had one major turning point for her. In season 3, right? Right after the Noldor arrived, she was all eager. She was all like, I want to be a leader. I want to like, I kind of think that Fingolfin isn't doing a good enough job. Like, I want to move in on Fingolfin's priorities and things, like that's kind of where we had her in that place. And then we pulled her back in season 4 with her sort of crisis, post Kinslaying crisis, and the realization that that wasn't a good move, right? So we've already had one major course correction in this direction. So if she's going to relapse basically into, I'm going to rule a realm of my own, with a fist of iron or something, right? If we have her going off the rails in that direction, something has to push her to that. And what has just happened in the Nirnaeth might be a candidate. It doesn't have to be. There could be something else. It could just be the War of Wrath. It could be the fall of Doriath. It could, there's a lot of triggers that we can give her still that lie in the future. It doesn't have to be this one.
Right.
But
this one doesn't seem quite right, because for this one, she's just failed.
Right.
And that is not something that would inspire a lot of self-confidence of like, what I should be doing right now is being the person in charge
right.
of everybody else.
Right.
So I would think that her wounds from this are going to manifest in some other way.
Yeah.
Rather than going all in on leadership.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm thinking, Alana's thinking about her questionable interactions with the dwarves. Are there going to be some questionable interactions with the dwarves? It's fascinating to think she's going to become, one of the things that seems in her future, right, is the forging of useful, though possibly there might be some like morally dubious elements of her relations with the dwarves that we could bring in. That is to say, like, I wonder if she could play any role in the setting up Khazad-dûm for the troubles it's going to have. Like, anyway, I'm not saying that the fall of Khazad-dûm would be her fault exactly, but I wonder if she could have a not entirely wholesome influence on Khazad-dûm, basically. But in any case, it's interesting to think whatever her relationship with the dwarves is going to be, that it's going to be rooted in a sense in the sack of Doriath, right? Which is complicated as far as the dwarves are concerned. I do think that, as Eldred is saying on Twitch, the fall of Doriath seems like it would fit better as the launching point for her, and because she loses Melian, right? So she's now got to fill Melian's shoes, clearly, right? When Melian leaves post fall of Doriath, and also like, does she come out of the fall of Doriath with like, okay, lessons learned, I'm not letting that happen again, we're going to do things differently, and that's what leads her to her. So what spurs her to some dubious decisions about how to run a kingdom properly, right? Doriath 2.0. Right. What happened to Doriath 1.0 is not going to happen, by golly, to Doriath 2.0, and so that's going to prompt her to do some sketchier things. Right. And it is true, as Alana's pointing out, Luthien will be dead by then also, and that'll be impactful. She'll have lost Melian, she'll have lost Luthien. The loss of Luthien, I think, because they were friends, I do think that can hit her in some important ways as well. Yeah. Anyway, so if we do that, if we can work out the details later, but if we have the fall of Doriath and the aftermath of the fall of Doriath, I would think the Feanorians, involvement in the fall of Doriath also is going to be influential there as well, right? To have Galadriel be on the receiving end of the second kinslaying, right? After her issues with the first kinslaying, and being at least proximate to the delivery end of the first kinslaying, that also would play. So all of that stuff, that complicated stuff, the fall of Doriath, the loss of Melian, the loss of Luthien, the trouble with the dwarves, the trouble with the Feanorians, the outcome of all of those things then could be, Galadriel charting a new path, which is not necessarily a very a completely positive and trouble-free path towards Doriath 2.0 and her kingdom in Eregion.
Right. Right. That makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. And so if we do that, that means we're kind of committing to aligning her with Doriath in a more permanent way between here and the end of Doriath than we have so far. She had an important season in Doriath. You know, season 4 was her big Doriath season, but she's been out and about since then, basically. Though Celeborn has been still rooted in Doriath.
Yes, but he's also been away because he's not Thingol's favorite person.
Yes. I would really... That's a sideline, because Celeborn is always a sideline. But I'd like to pursue that actually a little bit in this season. Like the complex relationship of Celeborn and Thingol, basically. To have Celeborn continue to be the advisor whom Thingol listens to, like who will say things to Thingol that other people don't say, whom Thingol doesn't always love, but whom he respects. That's kind of the place where we've had him in relationship to Thingol, and I would love to see that kind of developed more. But anyway, okay. So for season 8, really season 8 and 9 purposes, we're going to basically more or less put Galadriel in Doriath, which does mean we need to be, when we think about Turin in Doriath, we need to think about Celeborn and Galadriel both and their involvement in all of that whole kind of network. The network of decision, and of course Morwen and Nienor as well, and how Galadriel is going to be involved with all of those things. And yes, Gregory, we are certainly having Celeborn learn from Thingol's mistakes as regards listenings to one's wife. Yes, that will actually be an interesting... The development of Galadriel and Celeborn's relationship will actually be kind of interesting. We're not going to... I mean, I don't see us spending an enormous amount of time with either Galadriel or Celeborn, but being mindful of that over the course of these next couple seasons, I think would be interesting to do.
Right. We'll probably only be in Doriath when the story is in Doriath for the most part. And for season 8, that means the part of Turin's childhood where he grows up through the Cyrus episode. And that could involve Beleg and Celeborn and Galadriel and all of that.
Yeah.
And then coming back to check in when Beleg leaves with Thingol's pardon for Turin.
Yeah.
That's something that's going to happen in Doriath without Turin. And then at the very end of this season should be about when Morwen and Nienor are arriving in Doriath, because it has to be before, of course, Glaring's attack that they travel.
Yes.
So
we want to know that Turin's trip to Dor Loman is pointless before he starts out on it.
Right.
Like
we
to know that they're not there, in fact.
Yes. They need to not be there regardless of when the audience finds that out. But we have to make some choices about how we're telling this story, because the way it's told in writing is that the audience knows a lot of things that Turin doesn't know.
Yes.
Especially that Turin is making the wrong choice. Like the audience knows that the reader knows that Turin is not doing the right thing with Finduilis and with marrying Niniel.
Mm-hmm.
We have to figure out whether our audience also is in on those things and is like, Turin, no, the whole time. Or if our audience finds out how bad a choice you just made.
You know, the choice to withhold the identity of Nienor from the audience that would be a huge thing to do.
We've talked about this. Because the reality is that, like, it would make me feel a little better because it would feel a little less icky if the audience also didn't know,
Right.
right?
Yes.
Because otherwise they're sitting there the whole time going,
Yeah. Like you do when you're reading it. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think for the viewing audience, they don't want to know the whole time.
Yeah. But at the same time, exactly, Marie, the sense that you described, the Turin no sense,
right,
is a
Yeah.
critical element of the experience of the Turin story. Like,
yeah,
The other significance to that is if you conceal Nianor's identity,
mhm,
then you can't tell her story
yes,
until her identity is revealed by Glorung at the end of season 9,
yes,
which means her entire story has to be at the very end.
yes.
That is, so if we made the choice to keep that secret, we're also making a choice of telling her story as an afternote
Right.
to
Right.
Turin's story,
Yeah.
which is a significant choice.
It is.
you could tell her story separate from that. You just wouldn't know who she was. Like, you would have to orchestrate it.
But her story is like, we know who Morwen is, so like,
Yes, but she could
we
just be
can't-
a girl with Morwen.
that'd be hard to pull off.
It would be. I'm not saying that we should.
Yeah,
I'm just saying that it could be done.
and it does. As
Even
Ilana is gently pointing out that this would undermine Morwen's story also, and it is. I am committed. I am committed to enabling Ilana to tell Morwen's story in SilmFilm. Like, that's been really fun so far, and I do like that element of it.
Yeah.
So yeah,
in reality, we know that audiences will put up with knowing that the characters are involved in incest because Game of Thrones exists.
Yeah,
And
but
we-
the
and you knew-
characters who did are villains.
Yeah, but you knew from day one that that's what it was, and they were like that for 7 seasons, and
it was
a big deal.
there's no,
as far as the audience goes.
There's no
But they
tragic
were-
reveal as far as, I mean, they're consensually incestuous. That's a totally different situation in that way.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
It is, but I just mean the audience puts up with knowing that
Right.
in a way.
yeah.
So
As long as we
if
know
the audience
that, as long as it's a way of signaling to the audience that they're bad people.
yeah.
well, the difference with this story is they don't know, and so they're not inherently bad people.
Yeah.
But the audience thinks they are because the audience is like, don't do that.
Yeah. So here's what I think. I think that if I were involved in consulting on a Turin Turambar feature film, I would kind of love the idea of totally withholding Nienor, just having it be a surprise shock to the audience, as it is to Turin and Nienor when it's revealed. Like, I think I might be tempted to go that direction in a situation like that, where we're like, it's focused, it's got to be compressed in some ways, right? But I think that in the context of the fuller, broader version of the story that we're telling, because season 8 and 9 are not just going to be Turin stories. We do want to tell Morwen's story. We do want to tell Tuor's story, obviously, also, but we do want to tell Morwen's story. We want to tell Hurin's story. We want to, we do want to tell Nianor's story. We want to tell Brandir's story, to a greater extent than it's told. So I think that what would be necessary, like the amount of narrative that we'd be obligated to suppress in order to do the reveal. I think we should. Yeah. I think it's too much for what we're doing. I mentioned the feature film thing because when you're doing a feature film, you have to suppress the other stories. Like, for the sake of compression and making it work within like a 2 to 3 hour film, you'd need to do that anyway. So you might as well go all in that sense. But I think here we don't. It's tempting, but I think we don't. Okay, hang on though. But let's go back to my earlier questions. So Galadriel we've got. She's in Doriath. And so we can be thinking about her in a Doriath context, especially with Turin and Morwen and Nienor in their times, their arrivals in and times in Doriath, and also potentially her involvement with other characters, such as Beleg, such as Nelas, such as Maglor, Mablung. I mean, sorry.
Mablung.
I often misspeak when it comes to Mablung and Maglor. Mablung, yes. Anyway, like her involvement with the other peripheral Doriath characters, I think is something that we can definitely expand on, and Celeborn as well, potentially. Anyway, so yeah, I think we can see her, and we don't need to accomplish much. That is to say, her own trajectory needn't move. Her own personal character trajectory for seasons 8 and 9 is still like recovery, right? Recovery and figuring out, because one thing that she has to be doubting, she thought she had figured out her new way forward, right? She still had the impulse, like the leadership impulse, the like I can contribute and there are tasks for me to do, right? Post season 4, post her own personal recovery, she thought she had, her meeting with the men after they arrived in Eastern Beleriand, right, seemed to like this triggered something so that she was like, yes, I have a plan now. I know she had her new vision and calling, right, for her contribution, which was the Easterlings, and now that's all been called into question because of the disastrous consequences, even though it wasn't really her fault, nor does the outcome mean it was necessarily even a bad idea to begin with. But nevertheless, she's got to be questioning that. So the only trajectory, the only character arc that she's on is now back. Essentially, we find her in Doriath in season 8 at square one again, right? What is my calling? What is my purpose? What am I supposed to be doing? So we don't necessarily need in season 8 her to make a huge amount of progress on that, answering that question, but we should be keeping in mind when we do have her interacting with the other characters in this story, that's the question that's on her mind, basically. Okay, Gil-galad. Is Gil-galad still ambassador? Do we have him in Doriath too? Is he still involved there? Do we have him still as ambassador? Do we shift him back to Nargothrond? Those seem the two obvious locations for him to be.
So I don't think he's ambassador any longer because the High King is now Turgon, who is in Gondolin and not sending him any messages. So
why have an ambassador with a High King with whom no one can communicate?
Right. I feel like that story is over. It doesn't mean that he can't be visiting Doriath or taking messages from Nargothrond to Doriath. But he's no longer the ambassador of the High King. Also, I feel like Thingol kind of fired him from that job after he was ambassador for the Feanorians. So it's kind of like he's done. He's done there on so many levels.
Diplomatically damaged goods in some ways, as far as Thingol is concerned, for sure. Yeah.
Right. However, if we did want to involve him with Círdan in any way, the Círdan storyline for this season, should we choose to tell it, is that Brithambar and Eglarast get destroyed permanently.
Yes.
Or like for the second and final time, those places get sacked and destroyed. So Círdan is going to have to move to the Isle of Balar by the end of season 8, presumably.
Right.
And if that is happening in the aftermath of the Nirnaeth, what is Nargothrond's connection to what Círdan's up to, and in what ways are Gil-galad and or Celebrimbor and or Orodreth involved in that?
So.
Okay.
Yeah, Nick, go ahead. Nick.
I was going to say that it seems very attractive to me to have Gil-galad in a non-Nargothrond location for a number of reasons. But, and I was thinking, well, like he could just now be Orodreth's ambassador to Thingol. But as you say, Marie, if Thingol is not really is still associating him with the disastrous letter from the Feanorians, that could present a problem. Putting him in with Círdan serves the purpose of setting Gil-galad up as the future leader of the Remnant, right?
Yes.
As well as giving Círdan another person to talk to that we care about. Also, Orodreth could essentially be foreseeing the fall of Nargothrond, which I feel, given what we've established about him, could reestablish his prescience. And Orodreth is essentially trying to rig up like an escape chute,
right,
from Nargothrond,
right,
which he sees as an untenable position now that there is nothing resembling a Leaguer at this point.
Right. Now that the Leaguer is gone completely,
Yes.
it would make sense for him to think it's only Orodreth. It's like sooner or later, Morgoth is going to make it down here. Like
Right.
they have their secrecy and they have geography, like that they're south, so that it's not right in the main stomping path of Morgoth and his forces.
Which is and him having this backup plan makes it a little bit more understandable why he's not like super anti-Turin.
Yes.
Like he's not telling people no, we're not doing that.
Yes.
Because he's already funneling personnel and resources that way anyway. He's essentially already given up on Nargothrond.
And he could be, what this would mean is like that, and by this I mean what this concept of Orodreth, if Orodreth has the conviction that Nargothrond cannot stand forever, you could see him being convinced to support Turin because he is convinced that this is the way for them to accomplish most in the meantime, like before Nargothrond falls.
Yeah.
Is it greater risk that Nargothrond is going to fall? Yes. Like it's, the violation of their secrecy means that it may shorten the time. But if he's already convinced that the time is up, sooner or later anyway, then it's just a question of shortening the timeline. Can we accomplish more in less time? It makes that makes his position a little bit more rational than simply losing his head completely or being totally overridden by Turin. Let me pause for a second. I want to pause for a second and address what the text says about Gil-galad, if I can, for a minute, because I want to address like what is our responsibility to the text of the Silmarillion here. And I think that this is very significant, because I'm going to say a radical thing here. There's only one thing that is said to us in the Silmarillion about Gil-galad at this time, and that's he is sent down to the Isle of Balar to be with Círdan because he's the heir. I am not only
not obvious at that point.
No, not only am I not convinced that not only is that not in any way fully integrated into the storylines of the First Age as a whole. Here's the radical thing I'm going to say. I am not convinced that Tolkien wrote that. I think that was Christopher. We know Christopher says in The War of the Jewels that he, with the Gil-galad, like the two parentages of Gil-galad, he chose the Fingon one. He admits in The War of the Jewels that he thinks the Fingon one has less textual support behind it, and that he regretted making that choice. The one sentence added, because it's such a throwaway little thing. Remember the one little throwaway reference to Gil-galad being down at the Isle of Balar? It's like a one sentence little insertion in the middle of a paragraph. That is exactly the kind of thing that Christopher does add when he sees there's a lot, because consistency was one of Christopher's primary motivations in editing the Silmarillion. And there's a number of places where Christopher inserts sentences just like that in order to resolve issues of consistency.
I
Classic.
think that's not anywhere in the War. It's the War of the Jewels.
Yeah, he doesn't. He doesn't say that explicitly. He doesn't say that explicitly, but he does.
No.
Christopher does admit that he did the shoehorning of Gil-galad, of the Fingon, the Gil-galad son of Fingon concept into the Silmarillion. He said he admitted that he shoehorned that, and to that I add that again the passage that talks about him being, kept as the heir down in the Isle of Balar sounds to me exactly like the insertions that Christopher has admitted were him. So for instance, a close parallel, which I think is very similar, both in tone and in nature, is the sentence about Celebrimbor separating from Curufin at the time when they were, you remember there's that one random sentence, right? At this time, Celebrimbor, ceased following his father and remained in Nargothrond when Curufin is kicked out, right? Abjured I forget the phrasing, but you remember the one sentence I'm talking about, right? The one random reference to Celebrimbor in the middle of it. Christopher wrote that. He admitted Christopher wrote that sentence. Tolkien did not write that sentence, right? Christopher inserted that sentence because without it, there is no indication. All of a sudden, Celebrimbor, son of Curufin, is there in the Second Age. And there's no indication as to, how did he get there? Didn't we know what happened to Curufin and the Feanorians? How on earth does Celebrimbor make any sense, right? So Christopher shoehorned that. He wrote that sentence and put that in just so that people wouldn't have that kind of continuity question about Celebrimbor. And there are lots of places where Christopher he doesn't write a whole bunch of text, but he'll insert sentences like that in order to assert continuity. And the Gil-galad reference sounds to me exactly like that kind of sentence. So I don't know, but I have a more than 50% suspicion that sentence was written by Christopher Tolkien and not by J.R.R. at all.
Lucky for us, we, of course, made Celebrimbor and Orodreth good friends.
Yes.
So we explained why Celebrimbor might stay in Nargothrond and tell his dad to get out.
Yes, we did.
And might be involved in going down to help Círdan build a brand new city on the shore, in the after the fashion of his great-grandfather.
Yeah.
Right. So we would need to figure out not only what is Gil-galad doing this season, we really do need to figure out how Celebrimbor survives the sack of Nargothrond.
Yep.
And not being there is a great way to survive.
It's a great way. So
it's not Gil-galad being sent there for safety. He has a job.
He has a job. Yeah. And I love now, ironically, having said I don't feel confident even that the reference to Gil-galad being down at the Isle of Balar was a sentence written by Tolkien, it's what I would like to do, actually. I still think it makes good sense. And the reason, there are lots of reasons I think why it makes good sense. But one is that we do want to maintain touch with Círdan. And I think that now is the time. We want to begin the process of establishing the Havens of Sirion, right?
In our Second Age cadre of people.
Yes, we want to start building. The Second Age crew, right?
Yeah. Well, and also when Gil-galad is the son of Fingon, him being the next High King of the Noldor is kind of like, well, of course he's the next guy in line, whatever. But with him, the son of Orodreth, son of Finarfin, son of why is he High King now?
He's only half Noldor in our story, for crying out loud.
So it becomes very much like how that guy ended up there. So if he has a story reason to be the guy in charge of the place that everybody ends up, it makes a lot more sense when everyone's like, who's going to be High King? Oh, maybe the guy who's in charge.
Yeah.
Instead of definitely that guy, son of somebody, son of somebody who was not High King.
It is far from intuitive. Of all of the elf characters that we still have surviving right now, he would not be the top of the list of who's going to end up as the High King next. So I agree. We do want to get him there. We would love to create a situation where when it's time to make a new High King of the Noldor, Gil-galad seems like the obvious candidate, but we've got work to do to get there.
Yeah.
I do like that
on
we've
this-
created a plausible reason why it's not Galadriel.
I was
Yes.
about to say
Yes.
that was the other storyline for Galadriel that I forgot to mention earlier, especially it had come up on the message board, is Galadriel going to think at any point that she should be the leader? Because I mean that was her storyline with Fingolfin, why are you in charge? I would do a better job.
Right.
At this point, High King of the Noldor is Turgon, who's in Gondolin, locked up with the people of Gondolin and not talking to anyone else. There does seem to be a vacancy in the High Kingship practically.
There's a vacancy.
Who's organizing?
Yes, there's a vacancy right now.
Who is organizing the Noldor to do anything for the rest of the First Age? Why not Galadriel? And wouldn't Galadriel think, why not Galadriel?
Why not Galadriel? Yes, yes.
Even if she doesn't try to claim the High Kingship in title, would she be trying to do that in practice? And is there anything left to unite at this point in the story?
Agreed.
I mean, it's Gondolin, Nargothrond, and Doriath are these isolated kingdoms. They're not even talking to each other barely. Is she going to try and do anything about that?
I would even go one step further on the High King question and say, I don't think calling Turgon the High King of the Noldor makes the least bit of sense. Like what? It's a meaningless title. We defined High King. Like everyone's ruling their own realms.
Mm-hmm.
The purpose of the High King was to be the overall leader, especially in military matters, right? When all of the Noldor want to work together on something, somebody's got to be in charge, and it's going to be the High King. It was Fingolfin, right? And then it was Fingon. Having everybody agreeing that the person whom nobody can communicate with and can have no contact with anyone should be High King is 100% senseless. Like it is irrational to call Turgon the High King of the Noldor. Like for anybody to say, I mean, they could give it as a kind of an honorific, like we respect Turgon, and so we kind of consider him but it's meaningless. Like it means literally nothing for him to be High King.
Unless Turgon essentially claims it by like coming out and say, well, now as your High King, like he sends a message out and he's like, well, I am High King now, so have fun out there, everyone, as I don't do my job
as I abdicate from my kingship. Right. Yeah.
Kind of feels like probably should send that message out. It seems a little silly if he doesn't. But it does seem like, but also I wonder if bestowing that title on him is acknowledging that it is purely an honorific and that there isn't much for this guy to do right now because everything's fallen apart.
There is one thing for him to do, though, because everything has fallen apart. And that is anyone trying to talk to Valinor about what's going on?
Sending messages over the seas.
Can we send some ships?
Yeah.
And that's what Turgon's up to in this season, because he has to make all his attempts throughout the season so that the last ship with Varanway on it washes up right about the time that Tuor shows up to.
Yeah. We do need to send Varanway over.
So the season of sending ships is season 8. So that is what High King Turgon is up to right now.
By the way, is this going to be a recurring scene throughout episodes where we show Turgon sending off another ship with some lettering
And then the
at the bottom?
broken up ship.
Yeah, attempt number 3.
SOS 1, SON 2, SOS 3.
Yes, that's right.
We start every episode with a new ship sailing off into the west, and we end every episode with the flotsam coming back.
I mean,
Ilana brings up a good point that the Feanorians are also out there, and like there's going to be a lot of why not Maedhros and why not Curufin in the mix. So
I think the why not Maedhros is because the Union of Maedhros just happened and
Sure.
it went terribly.
Yes.
Like
that guy's disqualified.
Prior to that, he could have been like, well, if it's not Fingon, I guess I'm next. After that, I don't think he has.
But Curufin would have to seize full and not just like, because he kind of seizes control in a way, but there's still at least nominal deference to Maedhros at this point.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there would have to be. So what I do think is that there should be, over the course of this season and the next, some at least some of the plot devoted to like the politicking of like yeah, okay, Turin has now claimed the High Kingship or whatever, or however that got decided, but like he's not even here. So like
I think so the Union of, again, we defined High King as the military leader of all the Noldor in times of war. The Union of Maedhros was the last gasp. That was it. We're done.
Yeah.
There will be no more concerted military effort of all of the Noldor. And I think that almost everybody acknowledges that. I think that, and this is why I think this is the argument. Marie, you made the argument for anybody acknowledging Turgon as High King, right? Is if we say, okay, that's no longer that job is, we're retiring that position. Right? We're retiring the military leader of all of the Noldor because the Union of Maedhros was the last chance. Fingon, High King, and Maedhros came together and we tried the thing and it actually like had some chance of succeeding, but it failed. And it will never happen again. And now all we have left are random Feanorians wandering around, Doriath, Nargothrond, and Gondolin, and that's it. And there's no question of another union. There's no question of united military action again. So we don't need a High King for that. That's no longer what the High King means. If Turgon is going to do the redefined role, there is, as you say, still one thing we can do, and that is try to get messages west, right? I agree with you, Nick, that so long as, until the day comes when Maedhros is completely, Maedhros would have to be, there would have to be a usurpation. If there is any acknowledgement of Maedhros' authority among the Feanorians, he would have to, like, Curufin cannot claim to be High King unless Maedhros makes him High King. Right. So long as Maedhros retains authority in the Feanorians and refuses the High Kingship, nominally. Yeah, even nominally, right. Then there is no, Curufin will know he has no ground, basically. All he could do is argue for Maedhros, basically. Yeah. Again, unless he succeeds in an anti-Maedhros coup or gets Maedhros to abdicate to him or something like that. Like, Maedhros is the obstacle for the Feanorians putting themselves forward as new High King.
They would almost certainly, though, be trying to get other people to pressure Thingol to give up the Silmaril.
For sure.
You know, like, look, nobody wants this. Nobody wants to see this happen.
Yes.
We don't want to see this happen, but he's got to give up the Silmaril. We swore an oath.
Yeah.
Right. The focus of Curufin prior to the Beren and Luthien storyline would have been, hey, I feel like the Feanorians should reclaim the High Kingship somehow.
Yep.
Especially, Fingolfin's dead. Oh, who cares about Fingon? It really should be Maedhros. Or it should be me, in fact. I would be happy to do the job, should anyone ask. Right. So Curufin's focus is there. As soon as the Silmaril is in play again, that's the actual priority.
Yes.
So,
which is what Maedhros anticipated and was trying to fend off with the Union. Now that that's done, we're straight back there.
So Curufin's not trying to claim High Kingship.
Yeah.
He's trying to claim a Silmaril, and kind of figures that if he can pull that off, he's the guy in charge of Beleriand.
Yes.
By default, regardless of titles.
Yes.
So I think as much as he has been really smarting from no one calling him king, like he would have loved to have been king of something at some point.
Right.
He'll settle for a Silmaril.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. Still not king is kind of a Curufin thing. Yeah.
Is this another good reason to support Turgon as High King, so that if everybody else agrees it's Turgon, then it can't be any of these guys?
Because let's seriously consider this is High King of the Noldor, so apart from the fact that no one would agree with making it Thingol anyway, he's disqualified.
Yes.
So we're talking about Turgon, Orodreth, Maedhros. Are there any other candidates? I don't think there are any other candidates. Galadriel.
Yeah.
Galadriel.
Yes. Galadriel is a perfectly acceptable candidate.
A perfectly acceptable candidate.
According to Galadriel.
Especially according to Galadriel, yeah. Now, I agree. Alana had said earlier on that Galadriel this is going to be a low ebb of Galadriel's own desires and confidence in her own leadership, right? So this is catching her at a bad time as far as putting herself forward as High King.
But she might be kind of aiming for a de facto role.
Right.
Right. If she feels responsibility for the failure at the Nirnaeth because she was the one who brought the Easterlings over the mountains, then she might feel like it's her job to fix Beleriand.
And since
somehow.
the High King isn't around, in order to run the daily operations, somebody's got to do it.
So maybe she can coordinate between Círdan and Doriath already coordinate. Nargothrond and Círdan already coordinate. Why can't she just coordinate with everybody? But that requires someone talking to the Feanorians.
Which she has been more willing to do than most.
Yeah.
I mean, she's the best candidate of all of them to be in touch with the Feanorians. Yeah.
And having a lack of confidence doesn't necessarily always make someone do less. Sometimes it makes them do more and act more aggressively and more forcefully. I mean, like, narcissism is based entirely around a lack of self-esteem.
Yes, she could overreact in she could overcorrect in that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm feeling like the desire to this is to me an unforeseen consequence of A, trying to insert Galadriel into more events of the first age while B, not changing many of the events of the first age, almost all of which have disastrous outcomes. The unanticipated end of this is, how many disasters do we want to make Galadriel's fault? We've already now put her, partially to blame for the Nirnaeth.
The failure of the negotiations, if you will, between the Feanorians and Doriath that results.
Yeah, do we want to make the second kinslaying her fault too? That's exactly what I'm saying.
Suggested that very thing.
She's the messenger.
Or Dior, do not give them the Silmaril.
Yeah.
Dude. My dude.
Yeah.
Do not give them the Silmaril.
Yeah. Yeah. But she's got to have an opinion on that point. So we either have to make her say one thing or the other.
Well, Dior doesn't have any track record for listening to good advice. So we can go any direction with him. Like, he could get advice to do something better, but
and
choose
not do it.
Things that Fingal never listens to advice, so anyone can say anything to advise him.
Right. Yeah. No, I do. Like I said, I'm thinking I might want to limit the number of catastrophes we end up blaming on Galadriel.
It's like everything Sauron did succeeded swimmingly until he met Luthien.
Right.
And then everything Galadriel does ends in blame.
It's a hideous disaster.
Until the third age.
When she just does less. Basically, when she stops trying to do stuff is when things start going okay. Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah. So the message is, Galadriel, what you really should do is just go somewhere far away in a land that you never leave and stop messing with things. That's when things will go fun. That's your take home, Galadriel. Just sit back and be quiet, because everything you do turns to disaster. Yeah, I wouldn't want that to be her whole story, basically. No. So, but yeah.
I'd want her to, on purpose, do something a lot more sinister, personally. But
right. Well, we can fit that in. Again, the nice thing with Galadriel is we have lots of time, so we can give lots of ups and downs. I just wouldn't want her. story to be a story of unbroken failure,
Right. We don't
all the way
want her
through
to
to
be
the end.
Bulldog. Right?
No. I mean, it's shocking how easy that would be. It's really shocking how easy that would
Yes.
be.
Well, it's hard to have characters have things go well for them in the first
age. Exactly. Well, especially since and what we're trying to resist is giving her any of the hero roles, right? Like we don't want to take the good hero roles away from the ones that they were given them and give them to Galadriel instead, which means all that's left is disaster roles for her to play in the catastrophes. Oh man. Okay. Yes. No. We just have to be careful. We can.
So the couple of things that are going to go well that stem from this season are it turns out sending ships to Valinor, not a bad idea.
Not a bad idea.
And I mean, it won't work well now, but eventually. And then Isle of Valar as a place of safety for everyone to flee to after the other places of safety in Beleriand fall to Morgoth one by one.
Yeah.
Also not a terrible idea.
Also not a terrible idea.
Both those things involve Círdan.
Yep. Both of those things involve Círdan. And I'm thinking...
See, going far away and doing nothing is a strategy for success.
Yeah, it is a strategy. It's Galadriel's number one strategy for success. Okay, I am prepared to argue in defense of... I want to give Galadriel not just the job of arguing that Thingol first and Dior second should give the Silmaril to the Feanorians. But I'm comfortable sending her to the Feanorians to basically say they should give you the Silmaril and you should not attack whatever you do. For her to be joining with Maedhros, basically, and trying to fend off the second kinslaying. And arguing to Thingol that he should give up the Silmaril. And to Dior later on.
Which I think that fits the character development from the first kinslaying, right? Where she almost got involved,
right?
But realized before she took a swing at anybody that she was in the wrong.
Yes,
and would feel similarly about this here.
Yes. It does make sense that her anti-kinslaying perspective is would be for her the number one determining element of that question. What happened, that there should not be another kinslaying is more important than what happens to the stupid Silmaril from her perspective. Now,
I think the audience will resonate with that perspective, as at some point they're going to wonder what the point of killing everyone over the Silmaril is.
Yes, it is a question one asks before the end of the first stage. Even before we get to the third kinslaying, but yes.
Yeah. In giving somebody that perspective, it allows the Feanorians to reiterate
make their argument.
What their position is. Because from their perspective, their position is untenable. They must get the Silmaril.
Yes.
Now, certainly there's pride involved.
Yes.
But I feel like Maedhros and Maglor and potentially Amros's hands are tied.
And
in their estimation.
This is where I see Galadriel having to show tough love to the Feanorians too, though. She can say to them, yes, he should give you the Silmaril back. But she should also say to them, but make no mistake, under no circumstances does the withholding of this Silmaril justify a kinslaying. And if you think that you have no choice but to go and slay your kin, you are wrong. And you are wrong, and you are dead wrong.
So someone should say that to the Feanorians.
Yeah, and
why not her?
I nominate Galadriel to say that to the Feanorians. And I think, basically, for her to plant the seed, what Maedhros is going to say, right after the War of Wrath, in the final, Maglor and Maedhros' final conversation, right? She needs to be saying, he needs to be echoing her, basically, when he ultimately says that. Maglor, sorry. Maglor, after the War
of Wrath. The one who's could we maybe?
Could we maybe not? Like, wouldn't it be better?
Or
Like,
swear the oath.
yeah, the eternal darkness is actually sounding a little attractive as a viable option here. If that's what actually it takes. Yeah, exactly. For her to be basically broaching that argument, because Nick, I agree. The perspective of, like, especially Kurafin, right, would just be like, look, we have no choice. As you say, our hands are tied, right? This isn't up to us. We have no choice but to do that. And for her to say, like Maglor eventually is going to say, right? Actually, yes, there is a choice. Even if it destroys you, better for you to be destroyed than for you to be the vehicle of destruction for all of Beleriand.
And the delaying tactic also works. Like, you don't have to forswear the oath. You just have to, like, take your time fulfilling it.
Right.
And elves are all about taking their time. So what's the hurry, guys?
And that's the
Which is
stronger
kind of
argument.
The third.
Yeah.
Eventually, Dior's going to die.
Yeah.
Right. He's mortal. Yeah.
That it puts me in mind of, like, it's like when you're dealing with children and one of them, like, takes a toy away from the other, and you say, okay, yeah, they should give you the toy back to you. But also, you can't hit them in the face with a chair.
Right. Right. That's not okay. Yeah.
It doesn't make it better that you hit them in that they took your toy from you. That does not in any way mitigate the guilt, that charge.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm now picturing Curve stealing all of Celegorm's toys as children.
A lot of chair hitting.
Yeah, I think
Caranthir, of course, would take a chair.
Caranthir would be the one hitting people in the face with chairs.
I definitely do not have a toddler son.
Any particular toddler in mind when you're thinking about that?
Yeah.
No.
Completely non-autobiographical.
No, it sounded like a totally random and yes, non-biographical example there. Okay.
We may have made a misstep in putting the word kill in his name. I'm just saying.
It's fine. I'm sure it'll be fine. Okay.
At least you didn't name him Caranthir.
Could be worse.
I recently named a patch that I created for an app that I wrote for work, Caranthir.
Ah, okay.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that your coworkers don't know enough to find that ominous.
Yeah, what are you
got
communicating?
Nope, nobody got it. I named one Elro here, and somebody picked up on that one. But
okay.
Nobody got Caranthir.
Nobody got Caranthir.
Or Baruthiel.
Okay. All right. Oh dear. Okay, so here's what I'm thinking then. So big picture starting to come together. Let's destroy Egoist and Brithombar early in season 8. So Círdan he needs to, and then so Círdan, he just ends up in the Isle of Balar because he is fleeing. Like the first time Egorist and Brithombar were sacked. The advantage that Círdan is not necessarily great at defending his cities, but he's good at escaping, right? So they take ship, which Morgoth can't stop them doing, and they flee, and they end up in the Isle of Balar because they have to go somewhere, and going north seems contraindicated given the fall of the Leaguer, and that's where Morgoth's strength is. So they go south, and they end up at the Isle of Balar. Gil-galad, then we could have Orodreth then sends Gil-galad down then to Círdan. And this could be, again, following up, Nick, what you were suggesting. If Orodreth has he might not even have a firm conviction that Nargothrond is going to fall, so much as we need to make a backup plan. And this could be seen, that is, the fall of Eglorest and Brithombar, could be seen as almost like, or rather, the move of Círdan to the Isle of Balar could be seen as a kind of a providential thing. The Isle of Balar is a good location. It's at the mouth of the Sirion, right? And so they can go down the Syrian, go down the Nerag to the Syrian and out to him. So it puts Círdan in a good place to communicate with everybody. Because Nargothrond, Gondolin, and Doriath, all of them can get to the River Syrian relatively easily, right? Feanorians not so much, but nobody's communicating with them anyway, so who cares? But all of the main surviving elf places are like Syrian accessible in some way, directly or indirectly. And so having Círdan be at the mouth of the Syrian makes good sense. That puts Círdan in a good place to begin to... So Gil-galad goes down, and Gil-galad's remit from his father is to establish a haven, right? Establish a place where we can flee to. Because we've had the Nirnaeth, right? Nobody's got to think that it's a bad idea to create a stronghold that we could flee to. And a stronghold on an island in the mouth of the sacred river seems like a great place. There's a lot of good reasons to think that that's a good place for your fallback stronghold. Make a place to which the elves of Beleriand can flee. And that's a good job for Gil-galad. Orodreth's not going to abdicate himself and leave Nargothrond, but he's going to send his son to go and do this job, which nobody else is doing. Nobody from Gondolin is coming out to create a new refuge. Gondolin is the refuge, right? So, and Gondolin can't be the place. This is one of the funny things about the integration of the fall of Gondolin into the larger, which came first, right? Into the larger Beleriand story, is that when you read the fall of Gondolin, like the Book of Lost Tales 1914 fall of Gondolin story, the beginning, the opening premise of it is that Gondolin is the final refuge of the elves, which implies that the elves know where it is, so they can flee to it, right? But when the elves themselves don't know where it is and can't flee to it, it can't be in that role anymore, right? So you can't have Gondolin be the place, the last refuge anymore.
Oh my gosh. It would be so funny if not funny, but if Turin, in his declaration of himself as High King, also declares Gondolin the last refuge of the elves, and everybody's like, what do you mean?
To which we get no invitation, apparently, right? Yeah. Can we get a street address, right? Can you throw us a bone here?
It's like Rapture Scare,
It is just like that. Yeah, exactly. So, all right. So we, now, it is true that we're going to have, like, the havens at the mouths of Syrian and the Isle of Balar are not the same thing, right? But we can work out the politics of that later on. I'm not worried about that quite yet. We have the concept of at the mouth of Syrian is where the final refuge is going to be. It's Orodreth's foresight and wisdom that leads him to depute Gil-galad to establish that. So this is Gil-galad's first real leader. So this is actually a very logical step for Gil-galad in the Cursus Honorum, right? He starts off as diplomat, ambassador to Doriath. That was a legitimate, political job, right? Getting him sort of into that world, but he didn't have authority over anything, right? Now he's not being given authority over like an elvish kingdom yet, but he's being given the job, which is a real job of establishing a new, and so he's going to work with Círdan, and Círdan will be like, he'll join with Orodreth, and it's like when Gil-galad gets down there, Círdan can recognize like, hey, yeah, this kid's got potential, right? I see future leadership in this kid.
Finrod did.
Exactly. So Círdan obviously is the, this is, the Isle of Balar is the heir to Eglarest and Brithambar. Like, all of his people are down there. So he should be the one ruling it, right? You'd think, but he instead defers to Gil-galad. So he says, no, I want the kid to be in charge. Yeah, I've got enough. I got ships to build. I want the kid to be in charge, right? Gil-galad is going to run the haven. So now he has a people. Gil-galad has a people now. The people of Círdan, right? Whom Círdan has like abdicated, essentially. to him, sort of. That Círdan was always not really very kingly anyway, so it's not like he's...
I was about to say, he doesn't even have to officially
No, he doesn't have to officially
has to be
abdicate.
like, I'm busy building ships.
Right.
And his people all are still going to defer to Círdan. Like,
Right, and
Círdan's
Círdan is
still
deferring to
the guy in
Gil-galad.
charge.
So yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
so if Círdan says, oh yeah, whatever Gil-galad says for this new construction project, go for it, people will be like, guess we have to go listen to the kid then.
Yeah.
Right. And to have Gil-galad and Celebrimbor acting kind of as a team
Yes.
in this endeavor.
Do we want Celebrimbor to come down with him from the beginning?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Maybe not from the beginning. He could join him later. That could be part of how the
he
story
either
develops.
comes down with, like, do we want Celebrimbor there with Turin? Or not? That seems the big question, right? Whether he comes down at the sack of Nargothrond or whether he comes down with Gil-galad. Seem to be the two obvious
feel
options.
I feel like he is better as like part of Gil-galad's leadership team.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, like, if we can give that group of people more people to talk to, regardless, it's gonna be useful.
So if we have Círdan, Gil-galad, and Celebrimbor as a starting trifecta for the Isle of Valar team,
whereas in Nargothrond you'll have Ordreth, Turin, Findulias, and Gwyndor are your main named characters.
Yeah.
That works.
Yeah, I like that. It simplifies things a bit. Yeah.
We are gonna have to figure out where Gilmer and Arminus come from and what they're doing. Because this is also their season to be delivering messages from Ulmo that doom is at hand.
Yep.
As far as what does that precipitate, if anything?
Yeah.
Because if this is in response to the sacking of Brithambar and Eglaras, that's one thing. That's a very practical, oh, that happened, we need to do this. Or Dreth is like, this seems like a good plan, let's support that. Or at any point, is the message from Ulmo what makes Orodreth say, oh, well, Nargothrond can't stand. Like, Nargothrond will fall. I need to have an exit strategy here.
So the timing with them is awkward. It's awkward because they come in at a particular moment in both Tuor and Turin's stories, which means we can't...
A not very flexible moment either.
No, they're not. It's not a flexible
Turin
moment.
has to be in Nargothrond and Tuor has to be going through the Rainbow Cleft when they're doing their things.
Yeah. The Tuor one is the more flexible of the two. We could have them... We could get him through the Rainbow Cleft in some other way and have him meet them elsewhere. But still, there's still a narrow band. I mean, it's probably has to be pre-Nevrast that he meets them.
Right. So this season.
Yeah, it's got to be this season sometime. I think it has to. They have to meet him.
But the later part. Yeah.
Yeah, they have to meet Tuor first and Turin second. I think.
Sounds right. Yeah.
But. Because
Tuor's in Nevrast right about when Nargothrond's getting sacked.
Yeah.
So Tuor's departure from Dorloman is happening right about when Turin is in Nargothrond for that chunk of time, building the bridge and everything.
Yeah.
So like that.
So we follow.
It's only a few years.
Roughly speaking, we do Tuor and Turin's early childhood in parallel. Then we park Tuor with Anil in the wilderness and leave him there for a bit. Follow Turin into Doriath and then to Amon Rûdh. After Amon Rûdh, we get him into Nargothrond. And when we park Turin in Nargothrond for a bit and go back to Tuor and have him leave and head towards Nevrast and go through the Rainbow Cleft. And then we do the fall of Nargothrond and the commissioning at Nevrast in parallel, roughly. Basically, it's kind of the overall shape we're talking about. Because we do have Turin in Nargothrond and potentially Turin in Amon Rûdh. Turin has 3 parking places, right? We can park him in Doriath for a bit. Time passes.
Amon Rûdh,
and Nargothrond. But the only one that's really useful for the Tuor story is Nargothrond, basically.
Yeah, for Tuor, it's Anil, slavery in Dorloman, journey to Nevrast.
Yes.
And he doesn't really park. His parking is going to be, he's going to travel with Varanwe for a long time in season 9.
Right. Yeah.
Way more than Tolkien told us about.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're not
going to get him to Gondolin for a while.
Yeah. I mean, we do get his, the number of like life incidents that Tuor has to have pre-Nevrast is a comparatively short list, shorter than Turin's for sure.
Well, yeah, it turns the main character to
Yeah.
as a minor character in
Yeah.
the season.
Yeah.
Like that's, but they are moving in parallel through their stuff. Turns older, but
Yeah. Well, we can coordinate that more. That's jumping ahead. We need to talk about the incidents a little bit more. But no. It's important because Gelmir and Arminas they're tricky, because also into this equation has to come Turgon and Gondolin as well, right?
Right.
Both in the sense of like the Olmo communications, right? And yeah. And the Turgon sending ships story.
Right. So I kind of feel like Turgon has to decide to send ships almost immediately.
Yes.
And Brithambar and Eglaras have to get sacked almost immediately. Like those are both early season things.
Yes, I agree.
And then
I want Eglaras and Brithambar first so that we can be sending ships from the Isle of Balor.
From yeah.
Originally.
Okay. Yeah.
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 Because if Círdan is down there, like the Isle of Balor then becomes a safe place to build ships. Again, Círdan is focused. His like starting like the Gondolin partnership, right, where Círdan is building ships to go into Valinor. That's what he's focused on. And Gil-galad, meanwhile, is building the haven, right? He's building the refuge,
right,
on Valar, in the Isle of Balor. So yes, if we get because I'm thinking like, what if Turgon? He sends the first people that he sends them down Syrian.
Right. Which does.
Where are Gelmir and Arminas from?
That's the thing is, I don't think we really know their origin. Like they're on this journey to deliver messages from Ulmo, but why do they have messages from Ulmo? I don't think that's 100% clear. And I feel like the messages from Ulmo would happen after the first ship gets sent.
Yeah. So I don't see any sensible reason to have them be from Nargothrond. They show up at Nargothrond as outsiders. I don't think it makes sense to have them from there. I don't think it makes a lick of sense to have them from Doriath. I think it makes even less sense to have them be Feanorians. So that means they're either Círdan's people from Brithambar and Eglaras before the fall or from the Isle of Balor, or they're Gondolindrim, which they could also be.
Okay. According to Tolkien Gateway, Arminas is an elf from Angrad's people in Dorthonion who joined Círdan's people by the mouths of Sirion. So he is in the Isle of Balor at this time before he gets sent as a messenger.
Do we have
from Círdan to Nargothrond?
People, but the followers of Agnor and Angrod, like their people, where have we stashed them? Nargothrond, right?
Yeah, I think so.
With Finrod.
I think we've put them in Nargothrond. Yeah. So but what we can do then is whatever entourage comes with Gil-galad to help build the Isle of Balor can include these guys.
Right.
So they could be
from
coming
there.
from Nargothrond, but have been gone for 10 years before they come back with the message. So they're outsiders to Turin, but the other elves at the council would recognize them and know them.
Mm.
Was Gelmir ever in Nargothrond?
Our story hasn't introduced these characters at all.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I too am scanning at Tolkien Gateway and
there's two elves named Gelmir.
This is the different one.
One is Gwyndor's.
We renamed the one that's related to Gwyndor, who is a Gelmir of Nargothrond.
God damn it.
So you could see why we couldn't have two of those.
Yes.
No, I think that's fine.
So
let's have two characters with the same name that look kind of similar.
Cast the same actor.
The whole point is that Gwyndor's brother gets
I know.
than the Nirnaeth.
Differentiating. We're differentiating. Yeah. Okay.
Anyway, so
Well,
the
wait,
point is,
no,
yes.
we didn't use that name for.
No, we
right.
didn't use it.
We
We didn't
renamed
use
him
it.
for
We
this
renamed it
exact reason.
for this
You
reason.
guys said
yes.
this.
so that
yeah.
when we introduce Gelmir, he's not that guy.
He's not the already dead guy. Yeah. Yeah. Nobody's
Yes.
confused. Nobody's confused but us, it turns out. So, okay.
Except all of us.
Yes.
To
Okay.
me, at least.
Yeah. All right. So
That's-
let me pose a brief argument for making them Gondolindrim.
Okay.
I am thinking about Turgon initiating the
Oh,
ships over sea plan.
yeah.
Right.
So that's how they can end up
That's
with Círdan.
yes. If they were Gondolindrim, he sends them out with a mission, right? And their mission is to go and seek Círdan. They can go down the Syrian and end up finding Círdan. And it would be kind of interesting. It would be kind of fitting. So Olmo is going to send 2 messages, right? He is going to commission 2 sets of messengers, Tuor and Gelmir and Arminus, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it would be a little bit interesting, I think, if the one that he doesn't commission the Gondolindrim to go back to Gondolin and tell Turgon this message. He commissions Tuor for that because he's got a different plan, right? Tuor's got a special job, right, in Gondolin. But for him to basically take Turgon's messengers and be like, I've got another job for you, right? I find that kind of interesting. Like they get Olmo basically poaches Turgon's messengers, essentially. It's kind of fun. Like then Gelmir and Arminus their whole job is to go around and like deliver messages. They have no place. Like the Gondolin is their place, but they have no ultimate, like they're like they got sent out by Turgon to go and start this thing, and they do start the thing. Like they set up, they're the ones who set it up with Círdan about making the ships. How do they communicate back to Turgon, though? How does anybody communicate back to Turgon? Turgon's got the Eagles, so we can always play that card. That is the one method that he has apart from the Asanwe Kenta that he can communicate with other folks. So he can get messages in and out by Eagle, theoretically. Because it seems to me that for the sending ships to Valinor plan to get underway, several things have to happen, right? First, Círdan has to be approached and asked to build ships. Mm-hmm. Secondly, message has to get like 2 thumbs up, green light on the making ships. Go ahead and send mariners on approximately this schedule. Needs to go back to Turgon, right? And then Turgon has to actually send the mariners out. If they are indeed Gondolindrim mariners, which I think we have to have because at least Varanwe has to go.
Varanwe at least has to go. Exactly. There is one hiccup in this, in the story of Gelmir and Arminus. They're supposed to not know how to get to Gondolin because they do beat Tuor and tell him, if you want to find Gondolindrim elves, I guess go see Círdan. He seems to be talking to some of them, and that's the extent of the advice they can give. So they're allowed to be Noldor from Valinor. They're allowed to be Calaquendi, but if we make them from Gondolin and somehow mysteriously not knowing how to find Gondolin, we might write ourselves into a corner.
I have a way out of that corner.
Okay.
When Turgon sends them out, he makes them swear an oath that they won't tell anybody how to get into Gondolin.
Yep.
This is fair. Yeah.
And so they're like, we can't tell, we know where Gondolin is, but we can't tell you, but we can tell you what might be helpful. I mean, that might be
the other weird thing is they're going from
way out,
the mouths of Syrian to
why are they up in the Rainbow Cleft? that's a different question.
Nargothrond. And if you were starting out at the mouth of Syrian and your goal was Nargothrond, you would just go straight there.
You've done it wrong. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, again, I'm thinking that they get
what's their goal up there?
I
like, why are they there?
Almost sends them.
In Dorloman.
Almost sends them.
Yeah. So it's like, what's the Dorthonian, the Dorloman trajectory or Mithram or what? what in that area of the world were they aiming for?
What is the attraction to Gelmir and Arminas of Dorloman? Yeah, I have no idea.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Yeah, so we can make these things up as we
But
go.
I don't know what it would
These
be
are
for
parts-
anybody, frankly. Like, I can't see any excuse for any Noldor to be wandering about up there. So we'll have to find a reason somehow. So, but here's the other proposal. What if Varonway, what if it's the three of them? Because, like, what if Turgon, the sending of mariners is Turgon's idea, but we fulfill the texts saying that Turgon starts sending mariners by saying, as High King, he's sending mariners, right? But the mariners don't have to be Gondolindrim themselves, all of them. Only Varonway has to be, right?
Yeah, I mean, you would think it's mostly Círdan's people
Right, exactly.
staffing these ships.
Staffing the ships, exactly.
But
Right.
you'd want.
I want you to
some
build ships and hand them over to people who've never seen a boat in their lives. Right, that's the way to success on this mission. Yeah, sure,
Except you want some Calaquendi involved who supposedly would know how to get across the ocean.
sure.
Of course, the only ones who actually sailed ships across the ocean are the Fëanorians.
Correct.
I don't think anyone's talking to them about this.
No one's taking volunteers from there. Right. Okay. So,
No.
but right. So okay. So what if Gelmir, Arminas, and Varonway are sent out by Turgon?
Are from, yeah.
Now we can't have Varonway swearing an oath that he won't lead anybody back. Of course, that's that undoes my little suggestion for how to get away with that problem. But anyway, the three of them.
Varonway could be in a second wave. Like the first ones that are sent out have to swear that, and then
Right.
when they send the mariners, it's like, but hey, Turgon, if we do make it to Valinor, aren't we going to have to tell the people in Valinor about Gondolin?
Right.
So
We do
it's
want.
like, okay, so the mariners aren't sworn to secrecy, just the leaders of.
We
the
want the
expedition who
reinforcements to
weren't.
know where to come. Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah, so maybe that's how we get around that. I don't know.
Maybe.
It is weird though.
It is weird.
For like, you can never tell anyone. You please tell people.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
All right, go.
Yeah, it makes the first move seem of dubious wisdom. But anyway, yeah, we can. Well, I think we still need to figure, and let's wait until we work more on the Tuor story anyway, before we figure out why Gelmir and Arminas are up there and what they're doing and what they say to him. Even like it's
Fair enough.
they're
Like I said, there's a lot more flexibility on that piece of the story.
exactly. So we'll hold off
Putting
on
them
that.
in Nargothrond, it's
Right, exactly. But if we make them Gondolindrim, so those are our three named Arminas, Gelmir, and Varonway become the because again if we're gonna keep Turgon as High King, I want him to be doing High King things. And I like your argument that like the one way in which he can actually act as High King and not just be a pointless, useless, bad High King, is to have him actively involved. So I kind of like the idea of the people who are like moving and shaking around, again, Gelmir and Arminas are moving and shaking. Like that's what they're coordinating among different groups, right? They're given instructions. And that's a kind of a High Kingly thing. Now their message isn't from Turgon, it's from Olmo, but that's fine. Like even for Olmo to kind of recognize that, like, you are the messengers of the High King. Okay, oh, messengers of the High King, I got a message for you to deliver, right? For Olmo to kind of pile on with that seems like, again, it's even, I kind of like the idea of Olmo saying, oh, has Turgon, your High King, made you messengers? Great, then messengers I shall make you. I'm poaching you, and I'm going to send you off on a different mission that your king didn't send you on, because that's what I'm going to do, right? So I think that's I think that's kind of fun. We could make them people of Círdan, but I kind of like involving Turgon even indirectly in this, and that's why I kind of want to have more Gondolindrim participation in this season.
And Círdan's people, the Philothrim, are Sindar elves. I
Yes.
mean, they're
Yes.
of the original Teleri group, however you want to
Yes.
label that stuff. So it makes sense that by the way, Noldor, you guys are in trouble message would not be one of Círdan's
Coming
people.
from-
It
yes.
would be
Yes.
one of the Noldor delivering this message from Olmo.
Yes. Could you imagine a pair of Sindar going to like the Feanorians and be like, we have a message for the Noldor about how they're screwing everything up. Like, yeah, no, it makes some more sense for a Noldo to be doing that. So, all right, no one's hitting anyone with any chairs in the face during this broadcast, for crying out loud, right? Does he know that that's part of the ground rules here, right? That we have that's a long established tradition.
Well, this is Violet. This is she.
Yeah.
Yes.
How's she doing?
She's doing great.
She's doing great. Yeah.
She seems unlikely to throw any chairs.
I think she's not
anytime
getting
No.
anybody with any chairs.
No.
Maybe she'll grow into it.
soon. If you're very
He
lucky.
says cheerfully. Nope. Excellent. All right. So we can kind of refine this later, but yeah, I do want Gelmir and Arminas to be Noldor, and I don't like them being from Nargothrond. I kind of like that. I want them to be outsiders in Nargothrond when they get there, because that's the role that they're kind of playing anyway. And I know, like, it's, yeah, I think that I think it'd be good. I think that would work. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, I wouldn't hate, by the way, though, sending Veronway out earlier. He's going to be on the last ship, but he doesn't have to take ship right away. Like, I'm thinking of having Veronway come out as, like, with the first wave of mariners, like have Veronway be like the mariner overseer, right?
Yeah.
So he is like Turgon's representative in the shipbuilding going to Valinor project.
So when he gets on the ship, you know it's the last ship.
It's the last, yeah.
Because he's the end of the Mariners.
He's the end of the Mariners. Yeah, exactly. So he's yeah.
Sorry, he can even be originally one of Círdan's people, like Galdor, because Galdor we had switch from being Falathrim to being Gondolindrim.
Yes.
Bronway could be similar.
Yes, Bronway could be similar.
You'd think if Turgon's going to recruit Mariners, he would recruit them from his people who are, in fact, already Mariners.
Yes,
But-
exactly.
But if we want them to be in Noldor, it shouldn't be one of the actual Falathrim who joined Gondolin. It should be one of the
That's true. But
Halaquendi. Veronway could be either.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Veronway doesn't have to be Noldo necessarily.
No.
Yeah. Gelmir and Amina should be, but Veronway doesn't have to be. But yes, I agree. I mean, it is one of the ironies of Gondolin, right? Like, let us recruit people from this landlocked country to go and become intrepid mariners is weird, or at least a little bit funny. And so, yes, having some of Círdan's former people, right, who were in Nevrast, be the volunteers to come and oversee the Mariner project. Yeah, I think that makes good sense. And so it would be fun having Veronway on hand. I would love to get to know Veronway a little bit more before he washes up on the beach, basically. Mm-hmm. So if we have him, we could, in a sense, almost have him as part of the Isle of Valar team with Gil-galad and Celebrimbor and Círdan, right? He's representative of the High King in the High King's pet project here. Of building the ships to go to Valinor. And so, like, Veronway and Círdan are working together on the Mariners to Valinor project, and Celebrimbor and Gil-galad are working together on the Last Refuge of the Elves of Beleriand project. And then, again, when things are getting desperate, Veronway gets on the last ship, basically. And that could be a whole... We can make that a whole thing. Like, you know, the decision, Veronway's decision to get on the ship, basically.
I do kind of like the idea of Orodreth and Turgon both having the same idea, essentially.
Yeah. Yes, I agree. Having those two plans happening almost in parallel, but in the same place at the same time.
Side.
Yes.
Yeah.
Side by side. The Orodreth plan and the Turgon plan.
Yeah, I mean, they're different responses to the failure of the Nirnaeth,
Yes.
but they are responses to it. So
And
it's
they're
not
both
the,
sensible responses to it.
right. It's not the let's just go home and forget that happened, which would be a lack of foresight and leadership.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So it's responding to the reality of what is Beleriand now, which is part of what makes Turin's story as bleak as it is Beleriand's a pretty miserable place when Turin's growing up in it.
Yes. Yes.
And that wasn't always the case. It didn't used to be this way.
Yeah. And so ultimately, the picture that we're painting here is that we've got 4 basic centers of activity in Beleriand, elvish activity anyway, post-Nirnaeth, right? We've got Nargothrond, Gondolin, the Feanorians, and Doriath, right? With the Isle of Bawar as a kind of extension of multiples of them. But of those, 2 of them, that is to say, Nargothrond and Gondolin, have a sort of a positive reaction, right? They have a constructive, or they each have constructive sort of future-oriented projects, right? Doriath tries to do nothing and just continue as if nothing has changed because they have the Girdle of Melian, so why do they need to bother? And then the Feanorians start acting destructively instead of constructively, right? Or start moving towards acting destructively. So, and of course the Feanorians and Doriath are focused on each other, right? So you've got them focused on each other and antagonism between the 2 of them doing nobody any good. And then you've got Gondolin and Nargothrond in parallel doing this similar thing, all of which comes together on the Isle of Bawar, which seems to work really, really well.
So what you're saying is the elves do fight, flight, and freeze.
Yes. Fight, flight, and freeze. Though the fighting, nobody's fighting the right people, but, anyway, still, yeah.
People rarely are.
Exactly.
Right. It's fight, flight, freeze, and fawn.
Yes.
So if we have 4, luckily I don't think anyone's really trying that last one.
No.
At this point.
No. Dorloman sort of, but yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah. Well, I guess that'll be part of the story of the season. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, Aaron's choices are what they are, but for a reason.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
And Tor will likely be put in similarly in untenable situations.
Yes. Yes. It'll be fun to think more, not today, because we're about out of time anyway. We, in fact, are quite out of time already. But before we go, can we make a brief gesture at Sauron? Sauron is the one of my big 3 we didn't talk about.
So I think this season should be much more focused on Morgoth, and Sauron should be on the side. So if his story is trying to get back in Morgoth's good graces and it's not happening, that's fine with me.
Yeah. We begin the season with him thinking he's redeemed himself, right? Mm-hmm. Like him strutting in with the Nirnaeth or Nerdiad, I totally spoked the wheel. Did you see that? Like that was all me. And Morgoth doesn't care, right? Morgoth is not having him back, basically. Because we still do need him going off on his own. Like he's where do we want him?
His conflict with Gothmog needs to come to a head before Gothmog dies in Gondolin in a few seasons. So that is still active. And he needs to not be there really when the War of Wrath happens. But not really not there. I mean, he's allowed to surrender to Eonwë afterwards, so he can be around for the War of Wrath if we want him.
He can be around.
But he should definitely be putting some irons in the fire out east and not just be focused on Beleriand.
He's got to be focused on lining his own nest at this point. At least in part, right? He's not going to necessarily give up on, but really, I mean, this season, these next 2 seasons, this is Glaurung's hour, right? Glaurung is the one who's going to establish himself as Dragon King of Beleriand, right? Yes. Or at least aspire to do so, briefly accomplish it after he conquers Nargothrond and rules from there on his mighty horde, right? So the real winner, if there's a real winner, it's not even Gothmog yet, it's Glaurung, which is odd because he got driven off and played no part in the Nirnaeth anyway. But
what if what if we could do a rare moment where Sauron and Gothmog join forces against the new kid?
Right.
That's got some potential.
Yeah, it's interesting because Glaurung really is the one. He's going to be all the initiative, right?
Yeah.
Gothmog isn't going to do anything until Gondolin, basically. I mean, we don't have to have him in any story. There's no justification for having him. There's no need to have him involved in any story until we get there. It's going to be all Glaurung until and through the fall of Nargothrond and then Glaurung's death. After that, we're going to get the fall of Doriath and the fall of Gondolin, one of which will be Gothmog, the other of which...
Dwarves and Fëanorians.
Dwarves and Fëanorians. I think we involve Sauron. Why not throw Sauron into the fall of Doriath?
So if Galadriel's role is to tell the Fëanorians, at the very least delay, like, don't kinslay over this.
Yeah.
She's going to be successful for a little bit because the second kinslaying doesn't happen this season.
Yeah.
It does happen eventually. So what tips it over the edge? Could Sauron be involved in that? Usually you want the Fëanorians to be the orchestrating their own destruction.
Right. They don't need to be duped
really,
by Sauron exactly.
Not really.
The dwarves could be.
Right. So the dwarves sacking Doriath.
Yeah.
He could be involved in that storyline.
Yeah.
Although I would really rather him have something to do with the fall of Gondolin, but I've made my
yes. You want him to be responsible for Gothmog's death.
I've made my feelings on that pretty clear.
And that's fine. We can have him. I mean, by the time we get to the fall of Gondolin, the fall of Gondolin is going to be the only show in town. So.
Yeah. Well, the idea is that when Myglin's captured, Sauron has to have words with him.
That seems totally in keeping with everything we've done before. Mm-hmm. Which means, again, what we don't want is Sauron to be like exiled from Angband, right? We don't want him to be totally on the out. He still
needs to be involved, but he's not
at the very least.
He's access. Yeah.
He's just not the returning conqueror he thinks he is. So he does get taken down a peg, I think, in this season.
Especially since there's a new clever guy in town. He's not the only one who has subtlety on his side.
Yes. And maybe...
Like, Glaurung is like the combination of brains and brawn.
Maybe we show Sauron as basically deliberate, like him stepping back. Like seeing which way the wind is blowing. And also suspecting, like, sooner or later, Glaurung is going to get his, right? Glaurung is not unassailable, right? And Sauron can be patient.
Right. That's fair.
Yeah, okay. So we won't do much with Sauron. He will want to stay in with the Easterlings. We want to come back. At some point, we want to come back to the larger trajectory. We need the future history of the Empire of Bree, right? I want to see where that goes into the Second Age and even the Third Age.
Conquered and colonized by the Númenóreans.
Right. My vote, by the way, is that ultimately the ultimate descendants of the people of Sooth Beradin are the Angmarim, who are ruled over by the Witch King later on.
Okay.
I think they're the survivors of them ultimately, like corrupted by Sauron. Yeah. That's why they are quote an evil people whom the Witch King, whom the Lord of the Ringwraiths finds and takes over as their king. Yes, okay. And Ilana, I totally agree. I want to explore Broda in Lorgan's stories. We definitely need to sit down with Dorloman and the Easterlings and set both for Turin and Tor, right? I mean, really establishing our first few episodes in Dorloman and how we're going to do that. But that's still, I think, a little too narrow. We're still kind of bigger picture. Today was big picture of where we're headed and making sure that we're seeing the larger trajectories towards the War of Wrath. Now I think we're ready to sit down and think through season 8 and the overall trajectory of season 8 and what we want to make sure that we cover. Going through the items on this list that I've had up that we've talked about some things here on our list. The escape of Gwyndor. I want to come back to that. because I don't want Gwyndor just to show up in the woods. Right? We need to get Gwyndor to the woods to meet with Turin.
Yeah.
There's a lot to do in this season.
There is.
There's a whole lot to do in this season. Man. Okay. Wow. Yeah.
It turns out that there's maybe more to do in this season than there is to do in the next season. So we're doing more than half of Turin's story here, which means that there's a lot more room next season for any storylines that we didn't fully give time to this season.
Would we want
to have more time to?
Would we want to change it? Would we want to? Because we could theoretically go
Where
up
else
through...
can you end the season? The death of Beleg?
Yes.
Like before you even get to Nargothrond?
Yeah.
Oh.
I was thinking either Amon Ruth or the death of Beleg. Yeah. Or we could do the betrayal of Amon Ruth at the end of this season and the death of Beleg in episode 1 of the next season, even potentially.
Alternatively, the solution is to kind of like give nods to the other stories happening without really diving into them.
Yeah.
That's where I was saying.
And then doing more with it next season.
Part of the issue is that there's time constraints. So Varanwe's story has to be to the point of meeting Tuor at the same time as Nargothrond is falling. So if we get the fall of Nargothrond in this season, then that whole story we've talked about with the Isle of Valar has to be told in full and not just alluded to.
Yeah.
Sure. That's
right.
Yeah, but it's not necessarily going to take a ton of screen time to do that. We can make it happen.
I was gonna suggest a more radical change we could make to try to balance the stories differently. Would be just to shift the crossover point.
The one point where Tuors and Turns.
Because it's one of our main constraints, right?
Yeah.
So if we were to monkey with that constraint, we could change things.
As far as like the timing of it, like
the timing of
it
like
their
just
before
I say it, acknowledging there are massive problems with this. But like, what if Tuor crosses paths briefly with Turin before he gets to Nevrast instead of after?
So the first time that Turin goes through the pools of Ivern on his way to Nargothrond?
No, I'm not suggesting a difference for Turin. I'm suggesting a difference for Tuor, so that we make Nevrast happen later.
Okay. Oh.
You see what I mean? Because that would ease some of the pressure of events that have to happen in the first half. We could stretch out Varanwe's story more. We could save Nevrast until season 9.
So geographically,
that's one of the obstacles. Yes,
Orloman through the Rainbow Cleft,
or take a yes, and that's one of the problems that I was saying. Let's skip from. I just wanted to say, like, we could consider something like that if we wanted to monkey with the balance of events.
I don't think that's the part we would want to change.
Yeah.
If we're going all the way through the fall of Nargothrond with Turin's story, that's a lot.
Yeah.
So the question is, does all this other stuff fit in with it, or is it too much? And if it's too much, I'd rather cut the story off earlier rather than try to.
We could just
take a little tiny bit of Tuor's story and take it out. Like, that doesn't feel like the right.
We could just get Turin to Nargothrond and park him there between seasons. Like, we could get Turin to Nargothrond, a shattered, half-insane wreck, post-death of Beleg. Park him there, go to Nevrast, do the tour, have the commissioning of Tuor be the final episode of the season, and rejoin Turin in recovery with Finduilas and Gwyndor in Nargothrond in episode 1 of season 9, and do the fall of Nargothrond in the opening movement of season 9 instead of having it be the close of season 8.
All right. So I think what we need to do is figure out what Turin's story looks like for a 13-episode arc.
Yes.
Without the assumption of the fall of Nargothrond being episode 13.
Okay.
Like we should start with episode 1, see how far we think we're going to get to, and then worry what else is going to fit in the season. Because if there's a question mark there, that changes everything, and we can't answer all the other questions until we know how far Turin's story is going, because he is the central story.
We have to make
that
the
it
story
would
of
be a
Turin
wonderful
work.
discussion for next
That sounds
time.
like just what we should do next time. And then after we resolve the shape of the Turin story, then we can figure out what we need to fit in where, and which we can do in season 9, and what we have to do in season 8 as far as the rest of the stuff goes. Yeah.
Sounds good.
One of the reasons for the, I won't call it panic, but for the concern about what we're going to squeeze in here into season 8 is the fact that all of the other plots, the non-Turin plots really that we've been talking about, are things that don't all have to squeeze into season 8. Like I think like Galadriel and the Feanorians, for instance, that doesn't have to be a season 8 thing. That can be a season 9 thing completely.
Exactly. We can do Galadriel and Doriath with that piece of it, and then do the other part later.
Yeah. So many of the things that we've been discussing, and even like the full fruition, the real continuation of the Gil-galad, Celebrimbor, refuge at Valar story is, anyway, like a lot of that stuff can really be season 9 story. Yeah.
So this might be just fine. But let's see what Turin's story looks like over 13 episodes. And if we're finding out that parts of it are too truncated, then we needed to make a change.
Okay.
And quite honestly, the political stories that we're talking about, the non-Turin stories, the non-Turin/Tour stories,
yes,
are not going to take up a lot of space.
They can be C plots in any number of different
episodes where there's C plots. It's not.
Yes.
It's not as daunting as it seems.
It's not going to take as much screen time to establish Círdan and the Isle of Valar, for instance. No. Yeah, no, totally agree.
I mean, it's not like we took a whole season to do the of Valerian.
Exactly. How hard can that be? Yeah. No, I think we're fine. Okay. Good. No, so next time we will go through the Turin story. We'll shape out the 13 episode Turin trajectory, seeing if that will work out for the fall of Nargothrond. If not, then we'll consider one of the earlier points, like the death of Beleg or the arrival at Nargothrond, or even Amon Ruth. Conceivably, if we needed much more time, another stopping point could be like Beleg's arrival at Amon Ruth, for crying out loud.
That feels a little early.
It does feel early. Agree.
I feel like we could go past that point, but yes, we can pick any point in his story and say that's.
There are some other things that we could potentially use as endpoints if needed. But I agree with Alana, and Alana, I'm thinking of you here especially. Alana says we don't want to rush the childhood of Turin. We do want to spend some time in Dor-lómin, not just with Turin and Tuor, but with Bratta and Lorgan, as Alana said, and also with Morwen, obviously,
and Rion.
They
still have to do that.
We still have to do Rion, the whole thing. So I do feel that we need. This is why I'm putting forward potential earlier points, because we're going to want to spend more time on the early stuff than Tolkien does anywhere but the Children of Húrin.
If we only get him to Nargothrond, that still feels like a point.
Still feels like a win. I agree.
Yeah, we've reached a point.
Yeah.
It might be disappointing to have the fall of Nargothrond happen within the first 4 episodes of the next season.
It feels like
we picked that as an ending.
Yeah, it feels climactic in that way.
We'll have to see what we can do. But I agree. We're not trying to rush through all of this, and we want to make sure we can do what we want to do.
Yeah. Next time we might also, we don't necessarily have to do it in quite as much detail, but making sure that we've got 13 good episodes afterwards as well. Like we might want to really think about a 26 season arc. Yeah. A 26 episode arc for Turin.
Right. The thing is, if we ended up with more of it in this season,
because we're going to have more Gondolin next season.
We'll have more Gondolin, and we could have more Wanderings of Húrin. Like, I know that's supposed to be after the death of Turin.
No, but I agree with you. Yeah.
Why not? Yeah. So I feel like if the next season's light, it's not a problem. The problem is if this season is too heavy.
Yes.
So, but you're
Agreed.
right. Let's consider the whole thing and just kind of make sure we're good.
Yes. Yep. Okay. Yeah, because this season, we're going to have no Turin free episodes.
Right.
But next season, we could have Gondolin
Yes.
heavy, only check in on, the creepy domestic
Wedded
bliss
bliss.
of Nienor and, Niniel and Turin as a B or C plot for an episode,
I can kind of imagine him kind of disappearing from the story for an episode or two.
Yeah,
even
totally.
like he literally does that.
Yeah. He's making, when he is just the wild man of the woods, right? And before his name is revealed, it would be kind of funny, while he is under Morgoth's radar, to have him be away from out of the viewer's sight as well is kind of fun, actually. But okay, cool. Agreed. All right. Very good. So that's what we're doing next time. And now we are absolutely late, and I've come to my absolute hard stop, so we must end. Thank you, everybody. This was great, a great beginning. I'm excited about that. We've got more things we'll come back to next time. Just a reminder that asynchronous listeners are welcome to comment on the message board. If you've got ideas and thoughts, we want to hear them. This is designed to be not just a podcast series, but the podcast series is kind of the engine of the thing. But this is a collaborative process as well. So any suggestions that people have to make, I urge you to look us up on the SilmFilms at the SilmFilm Project forum in forums.signumuniversity.org to engage there. Next session, Thursday, December 4th. So we've got American Thanksgiving next week, and then we'll be back the week after to look at Turin and make some decisions about the trajectory of Turin's story this season. All right. Thanks very much, everybody. Thanks for joining us, and thanks to everybody on the broadcast. Thanks for wonderful contributions from folks listening. And I will say, as always, thanks for listening, and Godspeed.